Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Giradhari Yasodhanandana Brajajanranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Vrajajanranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Brajajanranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupada Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Stotra Satashispadi Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Nanta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Gandharaj Ki Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Today I'm filling in for Vinod Bihari Prabhu. So yeah, I'm sorry he couldn't make it. Yeah, so anyway, let's see what we can do about trying to understand Srila Prabhupada's purport and unravel the mysteries of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 36. The chapter is entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Savachakataya Bhagavan Brahma Rupadrik Nama Rupa Kriyadate Sakarma Karma Kapara Savachya Vachakataya Bhagavan Brahmarupadre Nama Rupa Kriya Date Sakarma Karma Kavara Sa He Vacha by his forms and activities Vachakataya by his transcendental qualities and entourage Bhagavan, personality of Godhead Brahma, absolute Rupadrik, by accepting visible forms Nama, name Rupa, form Kriya, pastimes Date, accepts Sakarma, engaged in work Akarmaka, without being affected Para, transcendence. Translation: He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged. Purport: whenever there is a need of material creation, the transcendental personality of Godhead accepts forms in the material world for creation, maintenance and destruction. One should be intelligent enough to know his activities in truth and not be biased to conclude that he descends to the material world by accepting a form created by material nature. Any form accepted from the material nature has its affection for everything done in the material world. A conditioned soul who accepts a material form for undergoing a certain term of material activities is subject to the laws of matter. But here in this verse is clearly stated that although the forms and activities of the Lord appear to be the same as those of a conditioned soul, they are supernatural and impossible for the conditioned soul. He, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by such activities. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Namam karmini limpante namam karma phale spriha ito mam yo bijanati karma bi nasabhadyate. The Lord is never affected by the activities which he apparently performs by his different incarnations and personalities, nor does he have any desire to achieve success by fruitive activities. The Lord is full by his different potencies of wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge and renunciation, and thus he has no reason for physical exertion like the conditioned soul. Therefore, an intelligent person who can distinguish between the transcendental activities of the Lord and the activities of conditioned souls is also not bound by the reactions of activities. The Lord, as Vishnu, Brahman, Shiva, conducts the three modes of material nature. From Vishnu is born Brahma, from Brahma is born Shiva. Sometimes Brahma is a separate part of Vishnu, and sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. Thus Brahma creates the different species of life all over the universe, which means that the Lord creates the whole manifestation either by himself or through the agency of his authorized deputies. Durgame parimendasya skalapati gati mahusvakipayustu dhanina shantu shantu avalambanam Omagyanati mirandasya jananjana salakaya Chakshur militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this particular verse is speaking about the Lord's different energies in this material world, and how within this material world we see so much activity going on, and if we have that conclusion that if the Lord, we can be placed into the illusion that we are thinking that there's so much activity going on that it's created by someone. His he's part of the activities within this world, that he's just manifested the material body, the best possible material energy that could possibly be, and he's sitting there as God over his dominion, over his kingdom. So when we have a kingdom, we usually think, well, even though we don't see the king, still we see the products of the kingdom, or the state, or whatever. If everything's going nicely, we see that everything is going nicely everywhere. I suppose it's relevant with the state and politicians, and now that we don't have a monarchy, that the politicians are vying to make the state nice. So they're all saying, look what we've done for the state here, and the other opposition saying, you haven't done enough, and it keeps on going. It's the eternal cycle. So the Lord is actually beyond this. So we've been reading about the absolute nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is just about to, this Bhagavatam is just about to evolve into the next verse, which someone is doing tomorrow, which I thought I was doing today, but someone read the same one twice. So we'll evolve into the next sloka a little bit by saying that actually the Lord, because his creation is so vast, that the living entities, they misidentify, but the fact is that the living entities are part and parcel of the Lord. We're all connected to the Lord, we're of that spiritual nature. So we have to understand what is our true nature, because that spiritual nature is going to be there. And in the next verse it says that our spiritual nature is assuming these bodies according to our past deeds, our past life, whatever we've done. So we are here right now. So first of all, we have to establish the fact that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, chapter 7, verse 4, Pariyamiti me anyam, I think it's only got the first line there anyway. Apart from this material energy, there exists a superior energy of mind, which is the living entity, and is part and parcel of me. So we have the split. So we're talking about the material energy now. So because we see so much going on, we identify with our material energy, and we're living here in this life as human beings. Sometimes we come to the platform as, how come I'm here? So if we understand that we've come to the human form, and that we had a form in our last life, then who were we in our last life? Aham Brahmasmi. We're not this body, because this body is just a product of what we were in our last life. Be interesting for everybody would like to know what they did in their last life, but the fact is that at the time of birth, when we are born, we are all our memories eradicated. It's our memory, but the mind still holds that. Of course, in our body, our gross body, which we have, which is made up of bile, mucus, pus and blood and everything, which is a product of the material manifestation of earth, air, fire, water and ether. We still have a subtle body, which is our mind, our intelligence and our ego, and our mind carries all of our past lives with us, but just that we can't remember them. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He said, many lives you and I have lived, Arjuna. The difference is that I, as Supreme Personality of Godhead, can remember all of our past lives, and you can't. Krishna, as a super soul, can remember the past lives of everybody, what they've done. So that is the sum and substance, the difference. But actually, that spiritual spark that we have that continues our eternality is a part of Krishna. So that concept, if we can understand that concept, is for us human beings, because we can differentiate from all the other creatures that are going to be listed in the shloka tomorrow, which are vast, they're unbelievable. I have to read it. It's outstanding. Not only the demigods, all the Gandharvas, Vyadadharas, Asuras, Yakshas, Kinnaras and angels, serpentines, monkey-shaped Kimpurushas, human beings, Pisachas, ghosts, spirits, lunatics, even evil spirits, the good and evil stars, goblins, animals in the forest, the birds, the household animals, reptiles, mountains, moving and standing living entities, and living entities born from embryos, from eggs, from perspiration, and from seeds, and all others, whether they be in the water, land, the sky, and happiness. They're all created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this material cosmos is vast, actually. So as human beings, we have a chance to look around and find out what our eternality is. That's called Aham Brahmasmi. But otherwise, we are just in the food chain, just like all the different animals that exist. They thrive on eating, or they survive on eating, sleeping, mating and defending. And of course, the prime factor is eating, just like fish in the sea, right? There's a great saying that one fish is food for another fish. You think about it, that's all they've got to eat, right? Most of the fish, that's all there is, right? One fish eats another one. Sharks don't eat plankton, right? They eat fish. Dolphins eat fish. Everybody eats some lesser being. So the ultimate stage, of course, is that the ultimate fish, I suppose the hungriest fish, is the whale. How do you feed a whale? So you have these little baby krill, which are swarming around in the millions, and the whales will travel thousands of kilometres from one side of the world to the other side of the world to be there when the krills are spawning, and they're swimming around in the millions. And the whales, they encircle the krill, and they don't let them get away. And then one whale goes in, gorges itself completely, and comes out, and the next whale goes in, and the next whale, and so on and so forth. That is the food chain of the whale. So why I brought this up is that the whale has to die too, and you imagine when a whale dies, you've seen whale carcasses sometimes washed up on the beach. Huge, monstrous, right? So they're in the bottom of the ocean, and then all the fish gorge themselves on the carcass of the whale. Right, so this is the cycle, this is the food chain. So human beings, if we don't understand that we're not this body, we just become a part of the food chain, which we are. Because when we die, our bodies, they decompose, they go back into the insects and the bacteria and whatever, they eat our bodies up. And this is part of nature, how it is going on. Eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Of course, how do we get out of this food chain is that we have to understand why we are here beyond this, because actually the food chain means the repetitive cycle of birth and death. And as we know, this creation is so vast that there are so many different complications that we become bewildered. So this is the point that is being made in this purport here, that when we take birth we see that, hey, there's the trees and the plants and everything else, and we're smarter than everything. And we're just a part of this whole manifestation, this material universe, and so therefore it is for us to control. It is, we can make a part of this our kingdom, and that is exactly why we came here, because we wanted to be kings, we wanted to be controllers. So somewhere along the line we turned our back on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his instructions, and we came to the platform is that we'd like to control this situation here, but it is very, very temporary. So we get caught up in this cycle of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, making things comfortable in society, but yet we are becoming implicated. We have no understanding that our imminent doom is coming, and that we're going to get caught up in this food chain, that we might be whoever we eat, or whatever state of consciousness we have. The feelings of wanting something might be more appropriate to some other species of life, and we may become them. So very carefully Krishna explains with the food chain process, eating, with eating it's just simple. If we do patram puspam phalam toyam, so if we just simply offer fruits, flowers, leaves, or water with love and affection, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we are starting to transcend that nature, that material nature that we have, and enter into a spirituality. And that spirituality actually explains how this world actually functions and what our position in the world is. Just like if we do not understand anything about spirituality and stick to material life, we come up with all these really, really weird conclusions. Just like in society today, for instance, that most people think that we come from the caveman, right? That actually even before the caveman was the ape. And then we have the humanoids who actually transposed themselves or evolved to human beings, cavemen, and everything was primitive, including animals. They were all primitive, and then somehow or other with their intelligent, the caveman domesticated all these animals. Wrong. That is the wrong conclusion. That is just a complete speculation. I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble here, but actually animals have always been domesticated animals, like the cows. They've always been there because that's how Krishna created them. Krishna's favourite animal is the cow, and the cow is there synonymous with the human being. That what does it do? It gives milk to the human being, and from milk we make curd and yogurt and cheese and butter and so many other dairy products, and it sustains the human being. If you go to India, you'll see that the cows stool, when the cow passes stool, they dry it up, make cow dung out of it. Beautiful cow dung fires. They make cow dung floors, they build houses. Everything about the cows, even urine, is medicinal. So there's a creature out of the mode of goodness that is tantamount with the relationship material with the human being. Sheep also, what do sheep do? Give you wool, give you coats. So like in Kashmir, you have sheep and you have nice woolen coats and everything like that, just to, in colder climates, you bring sheep, so you have clothes. So can you imagine sheep being out in the wild? They cannot survive, it's impossible. They're a domesticated animal. And then, because they're animals in the mode of goodness, similarly going along the chain that animals, there are other animals that are, you might say, are in the mode of passion, horses, elephants, but they, with a little bit of training, horse you can ride for so many different, you can use for so many different purposes, to ride from one place to another. An elephant is like your tractor, he's like your, what's the excavator, that he can lift so much, so with a bit of training, the elephants could, so all these there for the human beings to grow civilization. And if you read the first part of Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll be amazed that Narad Muni, many eons ago, many millions of years ago, even so many different kalpas ago, that he, as a 5-year-old boy when his mother died, he passed through all cities, factories, mines, big farming complexes. They were all there millions of years ago. But in our primitive consciousness, we think we come from the primitive man because we have no other information. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us this. And what is the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam? It's helped us to go on the right path. So the right path is that Krishna explains in the beginning, there was Lord Vishnu and he created the different demigods for sacrifice, and then he created men and he said to generations of man, go forth and offer and sacrifice to the demigods, so the demigods can offer to me and everybody will be pleased. In this way everything will be going along nicely. So that is the plan, and actually it says that work done for Vishnu liberates. So that is the point of our existence as material world, that we should seek liberation from this cycle of birth and death, that it is always going on. So sometimes people realise, okay, I'm here in this material world, and that if I embrace the mode of goodness, then life is going to be better for me. There is a state of happiness in the mode of goodness which is very stimulating to the mind and the senses, and it elevates people's consciousness, material consciousness. But the mode of goodness is very, very difficult because I had a bit of an experience on the weekend which I need to talk. I'd like to get out of my system, have to talk about it, so I've got nothing else to talk about. I've been off the farm for 4 days. So I went to a graduation ceremony at the University of Melbourne. My son got his master's degree in physics, right? So at that ceremony, I suppose all the most intellectual, illuminated people were there. And so I was studying them. They came in their own little group. They had their coats, they had their red coats, they had their square hats, they had their ribbons, and someone wore their scepters, and they come in this large group of people, right? All the physics tutors, teachers, whatever. So you could say they were a materially illuminated lot, right? So they came in a very pompous ceremony, and just looking at them, they all appeared as if they sort of embraced that mode of goodness. They were well-spoken, controlled, well-mannered, and their purpose was for the good of humanity as to what they thought. They were teaching knowledge, and the people they were teaching knowledge to were going to become scientists, lawyers, maybe politicians, people who were going to rule the country. And I saw that as a group, actually, they were basking in their own reputation. They were all in a sort of elite group. So they were very happy to be there, sort of getting some recognition. And in one sense that they were generating that mode of goodness. So I thought, I'll look up the mode of goodness in the Bhagavad Gita and see what it actually says. So I come to a very interesting sloka which I've never ever studied before in detail, chapter 17, Divisions of Faith, verse 18, Satkaramana puja tam tapo dammena chaiva yat kriyate tariha proktam Jajasam chalam adruvam, that those penances and austerities which are performed in order to gain respect, honour and reverence are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. So, gain respect, honour and reverence. So that appeared to me that even though there was semblance of the mode of goodness, actually it was more of a mode of passion situation with a tinge of goodness there, that the people there, they were expert in all the different fields like, chemistry, bioscience, physics, mathematics, all these sort of really intellectual pursuits, but really they were only enlightened in one field of knowledge. So it's only one part of their life, but actually, what about the other part of their lives? The fact of living. What about the fact is that they don't even understand or are not teaching that I am not this body, right? So actually, the real mode of goodness is for anyone to go about teaching that, hey, we're not this bodies, we're spirit souls, that there is a different path to attaining knowledge, and you have to cross over material knowledge and into the spiritual realm. So what are the dangers that, you know, I'm trying to be good, I'm doing beneficial works for this society, but still, if you don't know what is spiritual, what is material, you're going to make mistakes. Just like, for example, at that function, I was looking at everybody, and the parents were very proud of their sons and daughters, and I was lining up to take photographs, as I was with my son, and then there was little refreshments, that they have refreshments up there. And what did they serve? Wine. That was a symbol of opulence, and you know, that you have a glass of wine and a cupcake. Some vegan cupcakes there, but you know, not of the Krishna, but there was cupcakes and wine. So that was all seemingly so good, but except the fact that the person in front of me, he seemed to have this penchant for wine, and this fellow, he started drinking 3, 4, 5 glasses, and his poor wife is going, well, you're driving home, you're going to be intoxicated. And his daughter, who is there for her graduation, forgot all about her, and he just got carried away in his own sense. And the daughter's in distress, and the mother's in distress. So there's karma there. So what is meant to be good is the mode of ignorance. That's what Bhagavad Gita says, that actually you have to actually know what is good. And what is good is what liberates you from the material world, not what just makes you happy for a couple of minutes. So this is the situation that people are working on, that they're working on their material happiness. So they have a coating of knowledge, a bit of prestige, and that might get them some temporary situation, but Prabhupada actually describes that that is a very, very temporary situation. It is not going to last. And you tell some people that, and they say, well, you know, death is imminent. I'm not afraid of death. Who said that to you before? Anyone ever said that to you? I'm not afraid of death if you bring it up. Anyone? Yep. Someone said that to you? Yeah. That's a sort of, it's a sort of brave, a bit of bravado putting on. I know nothing about death. I'm not afraid of it. Prabhupada, in a lecture in 1976 in Los Angeles, he said that anybody who says that they're not afraid of death is a fool. Actually, you should be afraid of death. Death is very, very fearsome, because no one wants to die. And Srila Prabhupada himself said we all should be afraid of death. So afraid, in fact, that we should want to make it our last birth here and go back to Krishna. We don't want to be in this repeated process of birth and death. We don't even know who we're going to be in our next life, or what we're going to be, or if we're going to have any knowledge as to how to cope with it. So therefore, let's go back in this just in this one lifetime, we have a situation where we go through this dying process and we finish. It's all finished. We cessate that. That is the purpose of life. And if we understand the fact of a little bit about Krishna, then we all know that Krishna comes very, very rarely. He comes once in the day of Lord Brahma, which is 8,634,032 million years. 8 billion, that's just a figure. And just as a bit of a squirrel here, I'm just seeing the latest scientific theory. I'll just bookmark 8,400,006, Krishna comes every day. Bookmark that the scientists are saying that actually it's really worrisome that in a billion years this earth is going to heat up so much, even more than Venus, and it's become red hot, and life's going to be unsustainable. What are we going to do then? What are we going to do in 1 billion years when this earth heats up? Well, you're on the right track anyway, that actually a bit longer than that, this whole universe is going to explode. You know, it's going to get a bit burnt up. First of all, it's going to get flooded, and Lord Shiva's going to do his dance. He's going to burn it to shreds, and then it's going to go back into the body of Vishnu, right? And then once again, don't worry, it'll come out again. As spirit souls, guess what? In chapter 2 it says we're indestructible. So even though the fire's happening, the flood's happening, the wind's happening, still the spirit soul is going to continue to exist, except that we go back into the body of Vishnu and we're dormant for another equal period of time that we're in this universe, and we come out again and we do the same thing again. So 8,632,000,000 years, Krishna comes once in the day Lord Brahma. But if we actually make it our mission to make this birth our last birth, then we go back to Godhead and we see Krishna all the time. We don't see him once every now and then. We see him all the time, that he's there in the spiritual world, because that's actually our real home. That's our spiritual consciousness. So the fact is that we're bewildered. We're bewildered by our material senses, by the three modes of nature, and that's the situation in this world. Even though we tried to be good, so I was in a situation where that mode of goodness was prevalently trying to be the mode of goodness. But again, in Bhagavad Gita, in the divisions of faith, it describes the 13th chapter. My favourite sloka, I love this sloka, Purusha Prakritisto hi Bhukti Prakriti Yangunan Karanam Guna Sangosha Sada Sadyoni Jamnasi, that the living entity in material nature is following the ways of life, enjoying the modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil in all species. So that's our situation. We are enjoying, doesn't matter which association we keep, but inevitably, due to the karmic rules of society in this day, we are associating with so many different modes, and we get influenced by the modes. Just like these professors, they're giving the degrees out, yet they're serving wine, and people are getting drunk, and there's karma involved there, and there's meat involved, just like there is no connection between the spirit soul and the material body. So it's the food show. We can eat what we like. That is, they don't tell you what to eat. They can tell you how to get your degree in science and chemistry or whatever. But because they have no knowledge of the soul, they say, oh, food is fine. But if you're killing spirit souls, then you're getting so much karma and so much is going on. I'm bringing this up because there was one gentleman, not you, so he came to me yesterday and he said, you sort of put me on to, I asked what service I could do, and you put me on to looking after the bullocks, and he said, now you've changed me. I can't go and eat steak like I used to. I can't. I said, not only steak, but anything like that, and take it further. And there is that situation that just because of associating with cows and bullocks, you understand that they have a spirit soul, that they're sentient creatures, and they can teach you so much because there is always an internal relationship between the cow and the human being. And you can see that the cows have so many beautiful, wonderful qualities there that it actually impacts upon you. So that is just a part of the process of understanding that what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. So, I think so. The path of spiritual realization is there. So Prabhupada was talking about that we should all understand the fact that we should be afraid of death and make this our last birth, And how do we do that? It's just we embrace spiritual knowledge, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra and Sangha. So the Sadhu is the Guru, Tadvidi Pranipratana. Just learn the truth by approaching a Guru. He is a realised soul and he will impart knowledge unto you. So this is how we have this knowledge of Srila Prabhupada's the Acharya. He came and he started up this process of Krishna consciousness, and we are in this disciplic succession, this chain of gurus who have given us this knowledge. There's no way that we can actually get out of this material labyrinth without understanding spiritual knowledge in disciplic succession. This is called the descending process. So much of this science and chemistries and postulation, philosophies are based on people's assumptions, what they think is reality, and then for someone to disprove the reality. But actually that is called ascending knowledge, that they are fishing around in the dark, but the picture is too big. You cannot actually find your way out of this labyrinth by the ascending process. Just like you're locked up somewhere, you can't get out. So Prabhupada also describes it like a prison. But anyway, the process is you take to a spiritual master who will give you the descending process with the chain of knowledge that has been passed down. And if you go down that path that is given to you by the spiritual master, he will get you out there very quickly. And if you embark seriously on this process of spiritual life, then you can get out of this cycle of birth and death within this very same lifetime. That is the assurance of the spiritual master. So that is the prime goal of life, and whatever we can do to help people understand they are not this body, that is also very pleasing to the spiritual master and to Krishna, that people are in illusion. So somehow or other we are here not only to get out of the material cycle ourselves, but to burst the bubble of illusion that is there in this misguided civilization that we have today. Oh, are there any questions or comments that you lot might like to have? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a very interesting class. You've got a lot of amazing realizations. I really appreciated it. Thank you. My question is, I've been trying to understand cows being domesticated. So are you saying that they never were wild?
No, they were never wild. They were always there. They were always there with the creation. Just like the very first cows that I can remember in the Srimad Bhagavatam was the Kamadhenu cow, the little cow that served the Brahmanas, and it was a wish-fulfilling cow. And of course, the spiritual world is full of cows. So Krishna looks after cows in the spiritual world, and he came as a cowherd boy. So Krishna's form is eternal, and his associates are eternal, and his cows are eternal. So with a little bit of work, effort on the human part of the human being, bulls are being trained. So therefore you have the cow and the bull. So the cow gives you sustenance and the bull tills the soil, and then you have all your grains and whatever. So that is and the bull represents Dharma, religion. So how can the bull represent Dharma or religion if he was never untrained? Like that, if he was primitive. So that has always been there. So,
thank you. So yeah. It's not like you said the horses were in the mode of passion. They were wild, right?
Well, yes and no. There are wild horses, but there are other. Yeah, they were. You know, but some horses are more subject to being trained, like elephants. They live in the jungle, right? But then if you get an elephant, you train him, then he becomes a domesticated. You know, it's more like a mode of passion thing. But cows, being in the mode of goodness, they were just subservient. They were living in complete harmony with the human beings. That's what they're there for. There's not wild cows living in any situation anywhere.
Sorry, one more animal question.
Yeah, go on.
I'm fascinated by the whale, and it just eats krill, which is not very big. But even if it hunted the krill, it wouldn't satisfy you.
No, not the mouthfuls they eat. There's millions and millions of krills. They just open their mouth. They have this, they swim around in pods, and it's like a family. So they see a bunch of krills, and so they know, instinctively that they all work together. They surround the krill, and it's just like this huge feast, and they just open their mouth. And I don't have to eat any other. Maybe they do eat other fish, but they're sort of cumbersome. It's hard for whales to move around, like it's hard for a whale to chase a fish, isn't it? Yeah, so this is why we have, that example of krill that in the Antarctic, it's sort of like the sea is almost black with these little krill, and the sort of whale comes through, and
Thank you. You're very knowledgeable.
Yeah, thank you, boys. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Bhagavatam.